Welcome back to the W Sports Podcast. Once again, it's your boy Tubby, all by himself, sadly. But we're going to have fun with it because we have had a crazy start to the NFL season, and we're going to get into some week 3 NFL recap. I mean, the way this season has started, I don't know if I can remember in my lifetime a season this wild right off the bat with a lot of these top tier teams that we expect to fight for to get themselves to the Super Bowl, struggling early on. But there's been one big surprise this year, I think massive surprise. And it's a team that I don't think anyone, especially myself, I'm on record for saying I didn't think they had a shot at winning this week. And that's the Minnesota Vikings. They have come back, back to back massive wins early on that I think most people probably would have chalked up to losses, especially with how the offseason went for them. But you go and you beat the San Francisco 49ers, and now you beat and completely just shut down the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud. Don't know where they found the Sam Darnold. I'm sure the Jets are wondering the same thing. I'm sure the Panthers are wondering the same thing. Why didn't we get that version of Sam Darnold? It's crazy what he's been able to do. So maybe this is a Kevin O'Connell thing. Maybe he is, found and tapped into something, or maybe, residual for, Kyle Shanahan with Darnold being there last year. But they've definitely been a revelation he's been a revelation for this team that I think a lot of people expected a lot worse because of what happened with JJ McCarthy. Everyone expecting JJ to be the starter this year after, them spending the first round pick on him, and then JJ going down with the terrible knee injury during the preseason. Sam Darnold has looked really good. Aaron Jones had a great game. Justin Jefferson did Justin Jefferson things, just balled out. But this defense might be for real. They will get tested, again next week if Jordan Love is healthy. But man, this defense really shut down one of the premier young quarterbacks and one of the best offenses, I think, in the NFL, and the Texans, and made CJ Stroud guess and try to figure out what he could do. Brian Flores has done an excellent job at defense coordinator there. So we're going to see a big showdown next week in the NFC North with them going against Green Bay, and we'll see if Jordan Love plays. Talking about Green Bay, they somehow have gone 2-0. Yeah, they've played two pretty poor teams in the Colts and the Titans, but you've gone 2-0 when your starting quarterback went down. And most Packers fan, I think most football people were like, well, you can chalk up a couple losses in a row and maybe starting 0-3 and maybe 0-4, depending on how long Jordan Love is out, and it could be the season. But Malik Willis has been just absolutely incredible. My biggest question is, like, what happened to this kid in Tennessee? What went wrong? I don't because this is a completely different quarterback than we had seen his first couple seasons in the NFL in Tennessee. So we all think that Mike Vrabel's a really good coach. Maybe he's a big problem. Maybe he was a big part of what happened. We don't know for sure, but that's just speculations. Either that or Matt LaFleur is just that good of an offensive schemer and offensive play caller that he was able to, in just, a few weeks, reshape his offense around Malik Willis's strengths. And I mean, the biggest thing is Malik has not turned over the football. He has taken care of the football like he needed to keep them in this. And you could tell the confidence from him just has exuded over the last couple of weeks. And he looks so much more confident throwing the football this week and, making passes. But they didn't, have to feed Josh Jacobs the ball 52 times this week or whatever it was they did, last week. But they definitely came out, and Malik Willis has looked really good, and hopefully we'll get the matchup that we're hoping with the full strength Packers and Jordan Love back next week versus the Vikings in a pivotal early matchup for the top of the NFC North this year, which is kind of crazy to think that it's the Packers and the Vikings. I think most people expected it to be the Packers and the Lions. Well, Lions, granted, they're still there. They just haven't quite played up to, I think, what most people expected. The offense doesn't look as dynamic as it did last year, and the defense has played much better. The secondary for them is, much better, but I think there's still some questions out, with the Lions with the way they've kind of played a little bit early on. And I mean, they're probably are lucky that they are 2-1 and not maybe 0-3 or 1-2. So we'll see, going forward if the offense starts to pick things up. I think another big kind of crazy game this week was the Eagles Saints. I know we weren't sure if the Eagles really had much for the Saints offense, the way the Saints offense had been playing. They go in, yeah, we expected them to beat up on the Panthers, not quite like they did, week 1. Week 2 was a surprise when they went in and just absolutely curb stomped the Cowboys when what they we thought was going to be a good Cowboys defense. We'll get to that, later, but they offensive wise had looked really good. Well, the Eagles, man, they really shut down Derek Carr and Kamara for the most part this week. And granted, the win, you get the win, but it came with a lot of consequences for them. You started the week without AJ Brown, then you lose Devonta Smith, Lane Johnson, Mekhi Becton, and Darius Slay all in 1 week. These are prolonged injuries, especially the Devonta Smith one. Your wide receiver group has taken a massive hit, especially with what it sounds like AJ Brown being out another couple weeks. Dallas Goedert had a great game, 10 for 170. You can't, gripe about that. Saquon did Saquon things. But if those guys are out for a little bit, it could be a little tough sledding for the Eagles going forward. I think now with the way that the Saints played, yeah, 1 week. They played really good 2 weeks before that. Makes you maybe question whether or not the offense, it was just kind of I'm not going to say fluke. I still think the offense can be good, but maybe they played above their weight class a little bit the first couple weeks. So we'll see, moving forward if that's the case. Browns, I mean, we'll talk about another NFC East, matchup. Browns and Giants. Giants, I think, shocked a lot of people, especially offensive wise. Daniel Jones had a really good game. We probably expected the Browns to stymie that offense more, especially the way the game started. Fumble right off the bat, one play, Browns touchdown to Amari Cooper, 27 yards, and you're probably, as a Giants fan, going, "Oh man, not this again." Another long, long week. Wasn't the case. Daniel Jones, like I said, played really good. Malik Neighbors played really good. At some point, though, the Browns, granted, Deshaun Watson played pretty decent. You got to ask yourself, how much longer? You paid the guy buku money, even after all the off the field issues and stuff like that, but he really hasn't proven or given you anything whatsoever as a leader or as a football player on the field. So at what point do you just kind of bite the bullet and cut ties? And I'm not saying Jameis Winston's the answer, but maybe you call up the Colts and bring in Joe Flacco, because we saw that offense last year was much better with Joe Flacco in there than it was Deshaun Watson. So I think at some point you got to ask yourself, how much longer are we, willing to just kind of be mediocre, especially with what should be a really good defense. You're just kind of letting it waste. But I mean, I guess that is the Browns organization in a nutshell right there. Let's go ahead and talk about some rookie quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, I think, played much better than he has the first 2 weeks. I think he's finally getting his feet wet, getting his feet underneath him. 3 turnovers aren't ideal, but the fumble, I'm not going to put that on him. I'm going to put that on the scheme and how they have things set up. I mean, Braxton Jones doesn't even chip, doesn't even block, doesn't do nothing in this play. Leaves Cole Kmet on an island against the first-round pick, Leatu Latu. He strips it. I'm not going to put that on Caleb. Yeah, you want to see better ball security, but that's kind of hard when you get blindside like that, especially, asking your receiving tight end to block potentially a premier edge rusher. But I think he had much more command of the offense. He made a lot of really good passes. He had a couple, misses and a couple of interceptions. I mean, he missed Rome a couple times open down the field, and I think that'll come with more repetition. But I think he had much more command of the offense this week, and he looked like he was actually enjoying himself a little bit more. So hopefully going forward, they'll be able to do that. But that offensive line, you're going to have to do something to keep the kid from getting injured, because he's just taking hit after hit because the offensive line is pretty putrid. Bo Nix had a heck of a game compared to what he's done the first couple weeks, going down Tampa and shocking the red hot. Buccaneers and just kind of stymieing everything. Granted, he didn't, get in the end zone, throwing it or running it, whatever. But he had much more control of the offense and look, a lot more comfortable than he has. Kind of a lot of the same things with about Caleb. I think maybe for Sean Payton, you're going, okay, we saw some glimpses that maybe we can trust you a little bit more at the playbook and open things up a little bit more and see what can happen, especially throwing the football. But this is what I was afraid of. When we talked about starting him fantasy football, Mike Evans had another mediocre, not mediocre, bad game. And it's the Patrick Surtain effect. Patrick Surtain is the best corner in the NFL, and you will not convince me otherwise. He is the best corner in the NFL. He shut down one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. So I think for the Broncos, this is a great, stepping stone going because no one gave you a shot at winning that game. And you guys, defensive wise, stepped up and shut down Baker in that offense, and Bo Nix was able to get you, and lead you to your win. Andy Dalton, the Panthers. Where did this come from? Like, I've kind of went back and forth on how this happened and what happened, but like Andy Dalton was able to do a lot more than what Bryce Young has been able to do. And yeah, Andy Dalton's been in the league for, I don't know, 30 years, it seems like. But it brings into question whether or not it was a fluke by Andy Dalton in the Panthers, and it was just kind of a one-off, oh, this is first start, everyone's going to play tough. Or do you have a Bryce Young problem? Is Bryce Young the issue and not, everything else that we thought? Because Deontay Johnson looked great. Thielen looked really good. Chuba Hubbard looked really good. The offensive line seemingly looked good against a pretty stout Raiders defensive line with Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins along there. So it kind of is a head scratcher because a lot of us, question why would you bench Bryce Young? And now we're wondering, was it Bryce Young the whole time and not just, the other things that we try to factor in there, bad offensive line, not great weapons around them. Well, I don't know now. I'm trying to figure this out. So I guess we'll see in the coming weeks. If Andy Dalton starts playing good, one, it definitely affect your draft, rank, spot, but it could affect your trade if that's what you're trying to do now is try to trade Bryce Young, because now teams may go, well, if Andy Dalton's able to command that offense, why wasn't Bryce Young able to? Maybe they start questioning that, and the price for Bryce Young starts to dip even more. I don't know. I guess we'll see, in the future if it was a fluke or really it was just Bryce Young. Then we closed out the week with two really incredible games. The Rams coming from behind, and now the 49ers sit at 1-2 in the NFC West. Yeah, you got a lot of injuries for the 49ers, but last week you didn't have all those injuries, and you lost to the Vikings. Maybe there's a little bit more questions about Brock Purdy in that offense than we were expecting this year. Granted, CMC being out is a massive hit. Jordan Mason has, stepped in and played really well. Didn't play great this week. But the Rams scored, I think, 13 unanswered points in the fourth quarter to win the game. NFC is just kind of got tossed on its head real quick because the Ravens went in and early on, they dominated the Cowboys. Absolutely just dominated the Cowboys early on. And we're sitting here looking at it going, is the Cowboys defense this bad? And I don't think it's great. I think there's a lot of Dan Quinn missing on that defense. It doesn't seem like they're playing super hard, but early on, you're kind of like, this is going to be another super long game for the Cowboys. And maybe they need to think about not playing in Dallas anymore, because the last 3 times they played in Dallas, they've just gotten the doors blown off of them. Well, Cowboys, they stand up in the second half and shut down that Ravens offense for the most part and really made it a really good game at the end, but just weren't able to close it out at the end and stop the Ravens. But I think there's 2 big questions in this game: is what's going on with the Ravens in closing out games. You blew a big lead the week before to the Raiders, of all people, and lost that game, and now you blow a 20, I think it was a 22-point lead in the fourth quarter and they got within 3 of you. There's a lot of questions there, and I think a lot of it lays on really Todd Monken and the play calling and Lamar Jackson. Last few weeks, he has missed wide open games. Players, week 1, he misses likely twice and then misses Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman, whoever he was throwing it to against the Chiefs to potentially win that game. Missed a couple wide open guys in the Raiders game, but I want to know, why are we throwing it? You are up by 22 points, and Derrick Henry has had a massive game, 150 yards and a couple touchdowns, and you're not giving it to your bell cow when we know Derrick Henry gets stronger as the game goes. Just kind of a head scratcher. So I think there's something weird going on there right now. But luckily for them, they were able to pull out the win and not go 0-3, because we know you go 0-3. Well, I think there's been 120 teams in since the inception of the NFL, whatever, go 0-3, and only one of them has made the playoffs. So at least for you, you don't have potential to be on that list, but there's some questions there. Then the other questions is Dallas. Have all the offseason stuff kind of affect everything, because CD and Dak, for the most part, don't seem like they're on the same schedule right now. They're not on the same wavelength. And then the defense just looks poor. Besides this one good half these last 2 weeks, they just absolutely don't look like a Dallas Cowboys defense. And I think a big part of that is Dan Quinn not being there anymore. And Dan Quinn is one of the best defense coordinators in NFL, and he expects perfection every single time you're out there, and he expects you to be in your spot, and it's him not being there. It seems like they're not really playing their hardest. But as the season goes, the NFC seems like it's wide open right now with the way these two teams, the Cowboys and 49ers, have started. Us expecting them to maybe be in the NFC Championship game, one of these teams maybe be in the Super Bowl. Now you're looking at teams like the Vikings 3-0, the Buccaneers are still 2-1, Lions 2-1, Packers 2-1, Eagles 2-1, the Saints 2-1, a bunch of teams, the Rams, are sitting here with wins that we weren't expecting. So it's going to be interesting going forward to see how the NFC, plays out. But you're not going to want to miss, talking NFL, college football over the next couple of weeks, especially, if I'm by myself. But when Jimothy comes back, we're really going to start diving into this. And once October hits, if you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, you will be in the running for a giveaway. And the giveaways are pretty nice, especially if you're a Buccaneers fan or Eagles fan or a Colts fan or a Patriots fan or a Packers fan right now. We got a couple of signed jerseys that we're going to be giving away over the coming week or coming months. So you're going to want to stay subscribed, and you're going to want to download and stream the podcast on any platform, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, whatever platform you listen to, because you're not going to want to miss out, especially when things start getting really good. So I'll see you in a couple of days, and until then, see ya.